time for New York City baseball, past, present, and future.
I am back, and you are here with me, the Zigzag Man, talking New York City baseball. My co-host from New York is Wayne Unger. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. This is like our second, third edition of this, and it's going well, and I'm enjoying it. We have a guest today because the topic is the New York Yankee Boston Red Sox rivalry, and I thought no better person to talk with than an old Brooklyn Dodger fan who became a Red Sox fan in the American League when the Dodgers left, among other things. He became a Met fan too, and he's been on these airways before. Always a pleasure. Peter Trunk Sr. from New Jersey.
How are you guys doing tonight?
All right, Peter. Thank you for coming back to the airways. And like I say, the topic is Yankee-Red Sox rivalries. Peter and I are exactly the same age. Wayne's a few years younger. But let's start with Peter, the guest. What are your early memories of the Red Sox playing the Yankees in Yankee Stadium? And did they include Ted Williams?
They did. And, back in those days, Williams was, of course, playing out. Well, you can't really call playing out the string when the guy hits. What the heck did he hit his last year? Something phenomenal. But
60-something, right.
It was toward the end of Ted's career, and the rivalry was not a great rivalry then. The Red Sox were not a very strong team, and the Yankees always were very strong. I think that both of you gentlemen would agree with me with my assessment that this rivalry, although it goes back to the beginning of the American League, really is only red hot when both teams are good. If one team is good and one team is terrible, not so much rivalry.
Right. Does the nail have a rivalry with the hammer?
There you go.
Really?
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Very true.
For years it seemed that way.
So in the very beginning, just to answer your question and button that up for you, in the very beginning, when I first started being cognizant of the Red Sox and et cetera, they were not a very strong team, and they really weren't bitter rivals with the Yankees. Then all of a sudden, 1967 came. But then it flip-flopped. The Yankees were terrible, and the Red Sox were strong. And then, of course, it became very contentious in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. But what I would like to touch on later on, if you'll give me some minutes to do so, are the late 1940s rivalry between the Yanks and the Red Sox. But I'll give up the airwave here. Let's hear a little from someone else.
Yeah, I'd love to get back to that because the Johnny Pesky years and those were big years. Bobby Doerr, it was tremendous. Dom DiMaggio, Williams, tremendous teammates that were together for a long time, and I'd love to talk about that. I want to hear from Wayne and his take on it.
Obviously, I can't go back to the 40s or even really the 50s because I'm 8 years younger than you guys. Well, but I tell you what, I think I can't imagine the rivalry being any hotter than what it was after 1978 at different times when both teams were contenders. I think the Bucky Dent home run just really amped it up, and then 2003 when Aaron Boone hit the home run, through that time, and even 2004. I'm a Yankee fan, and that was just absolutely painful. But I think the Dent years, the Pedro years, when both teams were good, I just can't imagine the rivalry being any hotter. And a lot I think also has to do with there probably was not as coverage as well.
Right.
What do you gentlemen think?
Didn't have the cable coverage. That made a big difference. Really gave a lot of people a chance. When I think of the Yankee rivalry, I think of some of the ironies of, like, Don Zimmer being a Boston Red Sox manager and then coming over and being the bench coach of the Yankees. I think of the players that played on both teams. Torres was one that comes to mind. And what it must be like for a player, as it was when Sal Maglie went from the Giants to the Dodgers, what that must be like going into a clubhouse and suddenly being your teammates with bitter rivals, because the Yankees and Red Sox were played up so much in the press that it had to carry over onto the field just how much they didn't care for each other.
But Torres left as a free agent.
That's true, too. And others, there are a bunch of them that made that the third baseman Boggs. Just unbelievable how a guy could be a Red Sox, bleeding Red Sox. And it's not just the Yankees and Red Sox. It's just the age we live in of players leaving. I guess it was always that way, but it's been exasperated by free agency. And don't have to like it. Get to adjust to guys in different uniforms. Some guys never look good in different uniforms.
Johnny Damon.
Yeah.
Johnny Damon looked ugly in a Yankee uniform, with his hair all cut off and his beard cut off.
Right.
I want to share with you guys a Mike Torres story. Okay, and it also is a moment of extreme assholiness on my part. Okay, we got to be going back to the early 90s, and I went to a Knick game with some friends of mine, and we're like working our way upstairs, and my friend says, "Look, there's Mike Torres." So, like an asshole, I yell out, "Hey, look, there's Bucky Dent," and Mike Torres turned around and he looked at me and he just smiled, and right then and there I just felt like an asshole. So, and it's funny now. I work for Coca-Cola, and anytime, and I get this a lot, anytime somebody makes a crack talking about, oh, have a Pepsi, or I'll bet you drink Pepsi, when you're home. I think anytime they make a stupid Pepsi joke, I say, that's my punishment for saying that to Mike Torres. So, anyway, so that's my Mike Torres story.
It's a good story. Mike Torres had a head of hair, too, by the way. Which,
handsome man. Born on the exact same day I was born, by the way, Ziggy. August 28th, 1946.
Well, you're my senior, Mr. Trunk. My birthday is November 8th, 1946. Makes us both baby boomers, original baby boomers. The first year of 1946.
I have a real quick Mike Torres story myself. I was down at Linda and I, my wife and I were down in Cape May overnight, and there was a golf tournament down there, Joe Pepitone and a whole bunch of guys, and Mike Torres. Anyway, Linda and I were out having a few adult cocktails one evening, and who's across the bar but Mike Torres? So I walk over to him. Now, I'm 6'2", but Mike Torres is like 6'4", 6'5". Guy's huge. And I went over to him, and I introduced myself, and I said, I rooted for you very strongly when you were a Red Sox pitcher, and I rooted for you very strongly when you were a New York Mets pitcher. And he said, I take it you're not a Yankee fan. I said, no, I'm not. He bought me a beer. And he also told me that at the golf tournament that day, I think it was a 3-day affair, he said that Joe Pepitone cheated on his card. Anyway, that's the end of that story. But I just wanted to say that was my Mike Torres story.
Yeah, well, my first inclination was not to be shocked at Joe Pepitone's cheating, whether he did or not. It wouldn't shock me if he did, particularly. And that was my first inclination. But yeah, so these guys are human. That's what we're saying, and I can imagine what it must be to have to pack up the whole family, and the kids have to change their allegiance and go to new schools and move from city to city. It sounds like a very glamorous job when you look at the baseball card and you go out to a game and they're standing there in the sun. I hearken back to a Jim Brosnan book that I read when I was a kid. It was either Pennant Race or Lost Season or one of them. And he's sitting in the bullpen. He's talking, giving kind of a Boughton-like dissertation of what's going on, what it's like to be an inside of a ball player's head, what's going on. And he's sitting in the bullpen. It's kind of very few fans in the stands, and it's about the seventh inning, and he's thinking, I'm going to have to go in a minute. And here comes down the stairs his exasperated wife carrying the baby, walking towards the bullpen, walking down the stairs of the stands towards the bullpen. She can't keep her head together. She said she's had enough. And now he's got the wife. He's got one eye on the game and one eye on the wife, who's just in one of those, moods, because it's not easy being a baseball wife when your husband's gone 6 months of the year and this, that, and the other thing. And I touched on this very briefly with Tim Haller on another podcast show I do, Bay Area Baseball. And Tim Haller is my co-host, the son of Tom Haller. And we talked about how important his wife was, his mother, Tom's wife, in having to take over and play both roles, and how oftentimes the success of these players hinges on what's in their heads or not in their heads about their lives. They're not machines. It's not a computer game. Guys have bad years. Well, you don't know why they're having a bad year. Their mother could be sick. Their mother could be dying, this, that, and the other thing. So got to have a little empathy along the way for these guys as human beings. Some guys don't handle it well, though, no matter what.
That was very well said, Ralph, but you have to agree. When you're a kid, that doesn't enter into the equation. When you're 11, 12, 13 years old, you don't know anything about that kind of extracurricular activity outside of it. You think the guy wakes up in his uniform and goes to the ballpark.
Right. Oh, he doesn't?
When you you know what I'm saying? So only when we gain some wisdom, hopefully anyway, as we grow older, do we realize that all of these things enter into the whole picture.
Okay. You guys both agree with me. I'm going to have Wayne answer, too. There are some guys that just don't play well in New York. They're having great careers. They come to New York, they fall on their ass, they go somewhere else, and they resume excellent careers. Whitson is a guy that comes to mind.
Ed Whitson,
Is it the press? Is it the enormity of playing at Yankee Stadium, or even Shea Stadium, City Park now, didn't hold the glamour of a Yankee Stadium? But what is it about New York? You guys are native. We're all three native New Yorkers. You guys have lived your lives in New York, in the metropolitan area. I escaped when I was in my early 20s in the Air Force. They took me out here to Briar Patch in California.
I'll let Wayne answer that one first.
Please.
Well, I'll tell you. I'm not positive that that's actually that's really true. And I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. I would really have to take a look at a lot of other players, because I'm sure there have been a number of players that have been traded to other cities and fell on their face and then get traded again and rejuvenate their careers. So, I mean, it just stands out. Again, it stands out mostly with Ed Whitson. There were a couple of other pitchers. There were, but it really stands out mostly of the 1980s when you think about it. Like, hey, look what happened in Boston. Pablo Sandoval, fell on his face. Hanley Ramirez. Well, there were other things involved. I mean, he hurt his shoulder banging into the wall, learning, when he really didn't play, they threw him in a new position. So, but you know what? I would think it could be other cities. I mean, Philadelphia is a pretty harsh city as well. I'm sure we can find some guys for that.
Guys like Reggie Jackson, Catfish Hunter, you think of those guys, they thrive under the pressure. Don Clendenin came to New York, stood up in big games. It isn't all.
But was it pressure? But was it pressure, or was it just, or was it just like the vibe? I mean, it's the same thing with I guess someone who goes, who might change jobs. Excuse me, guy might be like a salesman. Yeah, a salesman. That's a performance. That's a true performance-based job. A guy may be great at one car with one car dealership, and then he goes to another, and it could be the sales manager, it could be the brand of the car he's just not into. It could be, the demographics. It could be a number of things. It could
be what's going on in his life aside from his job at the same time. And like with all of us, you have to sometimes separate what's going on in your life from what you have to do to, pay the bills or have fun or whatever it is. And it's interesting.
I've read many, and when I say many, more than a dozen. I've read more than a dozen comments from players that were traded to New York, and when asked what the difference was, he said, well, on a Wednesday afternoon, when I made 2 errors in Milwaukee, there was one writer in the clubhouse after the game, and there were no cameras. When I came to New York, there were 31 writers and 6 cameras in my face waiting for me when I got back to my locker. So I would have to say that there's much more pressure in a place like Philly, Boston, L.A., Chicago, and New York City.
Yeah, no question.
That's my opinion. That's my
opinion.
And one other point I'd like to make. If you also look at, when all these so-called New York failures were magnified, that's when George Steinbrenner was a very, very active owner, and he was a tough owner to play for.
Right. That the individual owner has a lot to do with it. Exactly how, and the manager too. What couldn't have been easier.
Billy Martin.
Billy Martin. Tumultuous situation. You got guys coming in. Bob Lemon, Hauser came in to manage them for a while.
We don't have enough time for you to go through all of them, Ralph.
No, right. But my point is totally different personalities, and you have egomaniacs as teammates. It's interesting. What do you guys like best about the baseball situation in New York? When the New York baseball, which if you get out of the country, you came out here to visit a while back. You've been in Florida. Doesn't have the intensity. How does that add to it, and how does it take away from it? So is the hype like of a Subway Series? The Yankees are playing the Mets next week. Does it become ad nauseum after a while? Can it almost take away from the experience? Do you find that to be true?
I don't personally. I thrive on it. I think if the Red Sox and the Yankees, which is that's our main thrust tonight, if the Red Sox and Yankees, if the Red Sox and Yankees are doing very well, and they're both fighting for the division lead and everything, There's nothing like a Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday day game coming up, and they're talking about who's not in the lineup, who's going to be in the lineup, who's going to be ready in the bullpen, who's going to be saved from Thursday and Wednesday when they were playing some other teams that they saved guys to be fresh in the bullpen. It's always very, very exciting.
Yes.
It really,
and then
really
also,
is.
and if these games are close games, your heart is in your throat.
Yeah, every pitch.
Yes.
Yeah,
every pitch.
I equate it to being a Giant fan and rooting against the Dodgers. The same exact feeling of it's not so much you like to win, it's just you don't want to lose. I mean,
to those guys, right.
And it's either bragging rights or guys at work or this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
But,
that's a big part of it. Guys at work. Big part of it.
Yeah, that look that you get when your team loses and they know that it really matters to you.
Oh, you catch a lot of shit the next day, and you know you're going to catch a lot of shit.
Right.
Absolutely.
Peter, let me ask you a question.
Absolutely.
Were there any players that were traded from the Yankees to the Red Sox that when they went to the Red Sox, were you like, I don't want them because of your memories of them as a Yankee?
Absolutely. Yeah. Now you're going to ask me name a couple of them. I can name Danny Cater. I mean, we lost Sparky Lyle. Oh, what a crummy, rotten trade that was. We got Danny Cater for Sparky Lyle. That was horrendous.
Yeah.
Well, when I
but
say
you know what? Nowadays,
well,
Wayne, you know what happens nowadays more than trades? Nowadays, it's a guy who plays out his contract and then signs with the other team. It's not so much trades anymore. Johnny Damon, Ellsbury, things like that.
Now,
what I mean by
Red Sox fan going to the Yankees.
Is Ellsbury
in other words,
really a Yankee, Wayne? Is Ellsbury really a Yankee in your eyes?
Not yet. No, but especially, I actually definitely not, and I'll tell you why. Okay, he stole home off of Andy Pettitte, one of my favorites.
I saw that game on TV. That was great.
And they were just kicking the Yankees' ass. But what I meant more in that question is, like, I'll give you an example. Okay?
Go ahead.
I did not want Roger Clemens. Okay?
Okay.
There was it wasn't like, so I'm going beyond the fact that it wasn't a good trade. I'm talking about the player itself. Like, I'll give you another example. Like, some years ago, there was talk about Pedro coming to the Yankees, and I was like, if they sign him or trade for him, I forgot what the discussions were at the time, but my thing was, if Pedro comes to the Yankees, I am not going to root for the Yankees as long as he's wearing a Yankee uniform. So, is there anyone who came from the Yankees to the Red Sox who kind of fit into that category?
No, and I'll tell you why. It seems, now I'm prejudiced, but it seems like all the really good players went the opposite way. They went from Boston to New York. Not too many really good players went from New York to Boston. I can't off the top of my head think of any. Zig, can you think of any?
Well, I can say that Damon was a much better player with the Red Sox than he ever was with the Yankees.
Yeah, but he went from Boston to New York.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're talking about, were there any real studs
that went the other way?
That went from the Yankees to the Red Sox? I can't remember any.
No, I really can't.
I probably can't either. I probably can't.
I know
either.
that it was ironic to me that Elston Howard ended
I was just thinking of him.
I remember that.
I mean, that one actually hurt. I couldn't see that any more than I could see Marichal with the Dodgers. Or Duke Snyder with the Giants. It's just some guys you can't see them in different uniforms, and you can't.
Or Rocky Colavito with the Yankees, right?
Right, or Tug McGraw going to the Phillies when he did.
Oh,
that
boy.
One hurt. Oh,
yeah.
that one hurt a lot.
Seaver to the Reds.
Seaver to that day was just unbelievable. I mean, that was a sad day in Met history.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's the one thing that numbers crutches and this, that, and the other thing, they can't quantify a value to a team. And it isn't just putting butts in the seats, it's putting a spirit in the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, and it's just not just with the fans, it's inside the clubhouse. And I'll forever think of M. Donald Duck Grant, whatever they used to call him.
Oh, boy.
Disdain, because he could just, no feelings, no compassion, much like O'Malley, for the spirit of what it's about. Baseball isn't selling widgets. Selling dreams, memories, connections with parents. You take a team and you move it to another city. You take a player and you do indiscriminately. And a lot of these players have the class to thank the organizations. They leave. They sign for more money, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
A few of them will do that. They'll take ads out in the papers. The vast majority, they're in it for the bucks. They go back to a little town in Alabama with their bucks after they retire, and they're not keeping the continuity of the game going, and you can't blame the players. You can't. You throw bucks at somebody, and it's more bucks, and you say, "Well, how much is enough?" I don't like that argument either.
No, I don't either.
Because that puts a restriction on everything. How much? I don't know. How much is enough for you? For me, it's enough that.
Especially if it's but you know what, Sig? Especially if it's one of the Latin players who's not only supporting his wife and kids, but probably his mother, his father, his 7 brothers, his 3 sisters, his 2 uncles. Right. You know what I mean? Like that money is going all over the place. You know what I'm saying? And they have to go where they can make the most money.
But it isn't just Latin players. It's uneducated white players. It's black players. It's they all fall. They don't all, but many fall prey to unscrupulous agents and money managers and lifestyles. I'll never forget Patrick Ewing when they were going on strike. He says, well, we make a lot of money, but we spend a lot of money. It's true in a way. It says it all, but you lose price. It becomes monopoly money after a while. And,
it does.
And there are players that there's a pitcher that went to Colorado. I can't think of his name.
The left-handed guy.
Yeah.
The left-handed that used to pitch for the Mets?
Was it
Mike Hampton?
Oh,
Denny Nagel. Oh, Nagel pitched for the Yankees.
Nagel for the Yankees and went to Colorado.
And Hampton pitched for the Yankees, for the Mets.
Yes.
Right, but Hampton pitched there because of the school system.
Right, because of the school system.
He actually, with a straight face, said he went there for his kids because the school system was so outstanding.
Yes,
I mean, how could the guy who was in the clubhouse with his little notepad for the Colorado newspaper not laugh right in his face?
When he said yes, exactly.
That was outrageous.
Really? Yeah.
Outrageous.
And he could do that because he's capable of having a job, not like me, who would laugh in his face. Oh, that was the first day at the job. It's your last day at the job. But that's what you have to do. And that's probably, and especially when the press nowadays, and always really, has to satisfy advertisers, that comes into a different play with the reporter, how the reporter is reporting, what he's thinking, how he's reporting the upcoming year when season tickets are involved and the team is still paying the expenses of the riders on the road or this, that, and the other thing. So a lot comes into play.
Well, that's another thing that I'm not even sure Wayne remembers. if Wayne is so much younger than we are, I don't think...
Not much,
and
Peter. It's all relative.
Could be wrong. I could be wrong, but back in the day, the Brooklyn Dodgers paid for all the booze and all the food for the writers that traveled with the team.
Oh,
I
think they have press box lunches set up. I think that goes without saying today. These guys they have to be somewhat influenced when you're talking to a guy in the clubhouse, and 5 days a week for 6 months, you got to take personal caring in whether or not the team wins. It's a better day when they win. They're happier to talk to you. It doesn't have to be overt thoughts. It could be something that's very subconscious, but I don't think there's any of us that wouldn't fall prey to showing favor to someone who you're dealing with, playing hearts with on a charter plane, or going from town to town. Now, that isn't the closeness of the writers and the players. It isn't that way today. Was in those days.
It was back in the day.
Yeah, things have changed. But then again, they have scrutiny from everything else, from cameras in the clubhouse to post-game this and pre-game that. So
yes.
Would either of us, all three of us, would we change places with any of these guys? All of that said for a half an hour about what they have to live with, we wouldn't, because they're playing a little boy's game on some level. But I can assure you that anytime you're in the business, it's a business. That kind of thing. And so that ends that portion of it. I want to continue this, and you can add to this by helping me come up with, you could add to this, Peter, by helping me talk about the Mets. I want to talk about the Mets and the Yankees with Wayne on two different levels. First of all, who is, and for the Mets, I think the most important guy in this next season coming up to determine how they're really going to go is Conforto. And I think his development is very important. Who do you think, Wayne, on the Yankees? And I'll ask you who on the Mets, Peter, falls under that category. Guy who has to develop for them to continue and is really expected to take that next step up. Peter, great question, huh?
It is a great question. And you're asking Wayne about the Yankees right now?
It was a horrible question. I'm asking you both, who do you think plays a key role in the development of their team and their own development in this coming year?
Well, I'm going to step on Wayne's toe right here. And before I let him answer that question, I'm going to ask him it's almost a rhetorical question. Being a Yankee fan, do you really expect the numbers from A-Rod, Beltran, and Teixeira that you got last summer?
Honestly?
No, lie to me.
Okay, no. Seriously, well, first of all, just so you know, and Ralph is my witness, okay, I predicted last year that A-Rod would have a successful season. I said this early on, and he exceeded my expectations. I was expecting 20 home runs, 80 RBIs. Okay, so he exceeded my expectations, but for me it was not a total shock, and I'll tell you why. When he played in 2013, when he came back at the end of, from that hip injury, even though the numbers didn't bear it out, watching him game by game, I just saw him the timing coming back, the eye coming back, the whole, I just saw it coming. I said, wow, this guy's getting it together. This guy can do it. He still had terrible numbers for the end of 2013, but watching him every game, that didn't shock me.
No, he didn't have great numbers at the end of last year either. I mean, I give him a lot of credit.
Well, I tell you what, Teixeira is probably the one that surprised me last year. More than out of those three, I was probably shocked the most by Teixeira, and that probably had a lot to do with A-Rod falling off a little toward the end of the year. Beltran, if he's healthy, he can always hit. Okay, but he shouldn't. But you know what? If he's going to be in the outfield, and he probably is, because A-Rod's going to be the DH. Well, I don't know if they're going to do that. Now, the other thing is, though, if Jacoby Ellsbury can stay healthy, then he can possibly put up the numbers that the Yankees are paying him the money for. But I don't. You know what? I think their pivotal guy is probably Severino.
Absolutely, that's a good one. He's going to be playing.
He's the guy. I mean, he's their Conforto. Okay.
Yeah.
Severino, he's their Conforto. He needs to step up and anchor that pitching staff. But the Yankees, although last year they exceeded my expectations last year, I did not expect them to finish at 500. And I did expect the Mets. I said the Mets would win about 88 games, but this year, I think this year I pegged them both for about 88 games this year.
Okay, that's
interesting.
How about Chapman? Do you think that Chapman's will make that much of a difference, and do you think it strengthens the bullpen all the way down the line? And will these other pitchers like Miller be able to play the role?
Well, we don't know, but Miller says he can. Okay. Miller says he can. And
isn't he going to be suspended? Isn't Chapman going to have to serve some sort of suspension?
We don't know this yet.
Yeah, I don't.
We don't. Well, actually,
I think he was cleared of any police charges.
Yeah, but that doesn't. But you know what? But that still doesn't mean that he's not going to be disciplined. Although I think once he was cleared of all the police charges, I have a feeling if they try to suspend him, I have a feeling the Major League Players Association is going to have something to say about that. So
that's true.
Who knows? I'm willing to bet the Yankees are hoping to get suspended for 45 games. That's the magic number.
How's that?
I don't get
it. Because if he gets suspended for 45 games, he won't have enough service time to be a free agent at the end of the year.
Oh, boy. See, that's what, when I got into this as a kid, it was to avoid the stock market. And it's because although it may not be, that kind of thing may not be any different than the Branch Rickey picking Clemente out of the Dodgers organization back in those days, hiding him in the farm system. There, some things don't really change, and some things change, and it seems the same. But wow, that's a good thing. Where did you pick that? Did that come out of your head, Wayne?
No, I read that. I've read that a number of times.
Oh.
I actually went even before he got traded. That was that was made the rounds in the media.
That's like keeping a kid down on the farm. That's like keep the Cubs when they kept Chris Bryant down on the farm until they could bring him up and they would get an extra year of eligibility out of him.
And you know what? And I think they did the absolute right thing.
Well,
hey, they agree with me?
as it turned out, they did. The Cubs did very well last year.
Yes.
I
look
for the
team
Cubs
to
to
beat.
be very tough this year.
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing, Peter. They're the team to beat. I just want to ask you before we close the episode, do you give Will Ponzi, as do I, a hall pass for the season?
You know what? That's a hopeless case for me. I've always been rooting for Mark Cuban to buy the Mets, and I saw you posted about 2 weeks ago you wanted Donald Trump to buy them.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. You put that on your Facebook page. But anyway,
maybe I just didn't want him to run for president.
There you go.
That's what I was thinking.
A lot of money.
But the thing is, the point is well taken. You want someone who's going to spend like a drunken sailor.
Right.
You know? If you love a team, like the Mets, and I know, Ralph, you do, you don't want a guy saying, well, we can only afford this guy for 1 year, and then we're going to do this, and we're going to move this guy over here, and we're going to do No. You go out and you buy the best of everything, because you're drunk with power. And the whole rest of the United States says, those damn New York fans, they want their cake and eat it too and everything. Well, of course we do. Of course.
But I never had
no
that
doubt
as a
about
Met
it.
fan. I never had that as a Met fan, and I think because the pitching staff the envelope is so wide open with these guys that just signing Cespedes deepens the outfield. Getting a double play combination that's much more solid than what they had deepens the depth of the infield. You got an excellent catching staff with depth there. And as Wayne has pointed out before, the only thing really missing is a right-handed reliever. And I think things will take care of itself because Mats could push Colon into that
Cologne.
Yes.
Into that Cologne. Address the ball. Cologne.
Well, I'll tell you.
I have to understand. I'm just a silly old man. But
you know what?
Mats will push him into the bullpen, and I think that will strengthen things.
Well, months and months ago, I was calling on Facebook, and Ralph can be my Boswell here. Months and months ago, I was calling for the Mets to trade Harvey. And the reason I wanted them to trade him is because they didn't have anybody. But now they got some ball players. And I don't want them to trade him anymore. I've changed my mind. I want them to keep him. They have the best pitching staff in the history of baseball, maybe this year.
Potentially. And potential means in the dictionary, you ain't done it yet.
Yeah.
I know.
And you know what? We got in the Mets bullpen.
They made the World Series, and I give Wilpon, on behalf of the show, that hall pass because he did set them up. He did set them up at least for this year, and I have the feeling that Cespedes has a good year. He's going to want to stay, and they're going to want to come to some sort of long-term agreement. They're already talking, making little deals with these pitchers, extending these pitchers along the way. Good things. It's been like over 50 years for me with this team, and for you with this team.
Sure,
Peter. We've had ups and we've had downs. Many more downs than ups.
Yes,
that's all. And we're getting to an age where I'd like to see. Put 2 or 3 up there, and I can think about those 2 or 3 for the rest of my life. I'll be a happy old Jew boy.
I agree with you 100%.
It doesn't take much to make at this stage. So, hey, thank you guys. This is terrific. I appreciate it. I'm gonna just simply end the show by telling everybody, you guys included, to keep on keeping on. Life is not always easy. It's a roller coaster, and when you think it's bad, it'll be better tomorrow. And there you go. Enjoy, everybody. Over and out.
Sounds good. Sounds
right.
good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Jen.
I
Bye-bye.
really
Bye.
enjoy you guys' company, and what a pleasure it always is. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Over and out.